everybody. Welcome. My name is Crickett Rumley, and I am the director of the Film Festival department at the New York Film Academy, serving our 3 U.S. campuses in Los Angeles, New York, and South Beach, Miami. I am so happy to be here today on behalf of the Tallgrass Film Festival, and welcome to stunning filmmakers, Patricia McCormack and Natalia Kaniasty. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about their films. I'm very delighted that we can have this conversation. And so let me give you a little bit of background first. Patricia was born and raised in Glasgow, Scotland, and trained as an actress at Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh. Her previous acting credits include Pit at the Traverse Theatre, Lost at Sea, The Field of Blood 2 for BBC One, River City for BBC Scotland. She has also appeared in the long-running series McLeavey, starring Brian Cox. I hope I said that correctly. And she is an accomplished voiceover artist. Welcome, Patricia.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And Natalia grew up in a rural town outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She is the daughter of Polish immigrants, and as a first-generation American, enjoys turning her lens on themes emerging from the gaps and junctures between her homes. Her previous short films have screened at numerous festivals in the US, and she holds an MFA in filmmaking from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, and she currently works with one of my favorite writer-directors, Gary Ross, in Los Angeles. Welcome, Natalia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is wonderful.
So I really want to first talk about Gabriela and Myrtle, these single name titles. They're not just the names of your films, they are also the names of really fascinating women in unique moments of their lives. I'm really intrigued by the way that each of you is able to take an evening, in the case of Gabriela, and essentially an hour and a half or 2 hours in Myrtle, and how much story you both have been able to tell in 10 to 15 minutes. It's stunning what you've been able to do. And Patricia, can we start with you and the genesis of Myrtle as a play? Was that did you and your co-writer Megan Barker, did you write that together or did you adapt it? Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So like I say, it was a play that Megan wrote and I acted in a couple of years ago. And there were multiple actors in the play. So it's a full-blown story, you know, it's a whole crime drama. And I was wanting to make my first short. And I do write as well. But this premise really stuck with me. And I thought, it's so powerful for a short. Particularly if we don't let the audience in right off the bat. So we don't know where we are. There's a disorientation to it. And the intention to play with that, I just thought could work in a short form. So yeah, it was my choice to give it a bash, I suppose, and do an edit and see if I could find something that could work dramatically.
So it was not originally a monologue. There was a whole cast supporting the story, and you transitioned it into a monologue.
3 actors, and they played different parts, so people kind of so it was I mean, there's a full exactly, there is a full story that we obviously hint at in the short,
yes.
And which gives us the possibility to develop, and we've had discussion also to the idea to develop into a feature script.
Excellent. Excellent. So that I have another question for you in just a moment about that, but Natalia, let's talk about how you came to this world and how you came to this story.
Well, it started in graduate school a few years ago, just a conversation amongst friends, just talking about strip clubs in general. I became curious who works there, other than the dancers. So I started to visit strip clubs in New York City during the day when the workers are there, and kind of observed the merging of the two worlds of like the front of house and back of house, and found this community of people who run these clubs just like any other club. And it made me curious about who chooses to work in a club as a cleaner or a bar back or something like that, versus, or house mom as they call them, versus dance on stage, and the economics of that. So it started germinating in my mind, and yeah, Gabriela was born.
The economics of that is fascinating. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Right. So, when I started kind of coming up with this character, and I started becoming curious about strip clubs as a workplace, versus kind of what we see in movies and TV and the media, which is this glitzy, glamorous, let's say seedy as well, place. More when I started thinking of it as a workplace, I became curious, like why a woman might choose to clean and make this amount of money versus dance and make a lot more money. And the hard work that is cleaning in anywhere, let alone a club, versus dancing is also hard work. And what are the economics of the two jobs? And the question arises, like, why would Gabriela do one instead of the other if she could make more money at the other? And I pose the question, but I don't. I like to leave answers up to my audience, and explore these inquiries more as pondering versus passing some kind of verdict. And I hope that comes across in the film.
Well, that is a great segue to my next question, which is about mystery and suspense. I feel like writers, especially young writers, often forget that mystery and suspense have to be present in every single scene, regardless of drama. We all talk about conflict, but both of your films so surprised me in the way that you addressed mystery and suspense. And I remember I saw Myrtle actually probably 6 weeks ago, and was sitting and watching, and I was like, what is going on here? What is this film about? I don't read the log lines before I watch the films. I just watch. And then with Gabriela, I was so nervous that she was going to become a stripper. I don't know why. I was like, please don't let her be a stripper. But can y'all unpack for us a little bit how you created questions in your storytelling, and how you created the mystery and suspense, how you intentionally created these elements in order to keep your audiences engaged?
Sure.
Well, for me, oh, go ahead.
No, on you go.
Natalia.
Well, I guess it was kind of what I was just saying. It all started at the root of this question, and I became curious myself when I was writing, and then even into casting and meeting Lucia Saw, who plays Gabriela. I stayed curious myself the whole time, like, could she be a dancer? Like, would she be a dancer? Is she going to do that? She's a good dancer. Why doesn't she dance? So keeping myself curious was a big part of that, and putting myself into the shoes of both my character and my audience, and trying to create empathy that way, sort of made me surprise myself, and I hope surprise my audience. And then, yeah, I mean, you know, as a director, I just played with those tricks of like, oh, you know, I'm gonna make them think she's a dancer at first, and surprise them. Those are little filmmaker tricks, right? But then that set me up to later in the film, you know, surprise you again with her trying it on. So yeah.
For Myrtle, I suppose, first up, you're kind of not giving away where you are. Right. So initially we're on, the audience is on the back foot because we don't know, we see something, a place that looks a bit creepy and a bit industrial, but aside from that, you're not totally sure. And I suppose almost like the two, because you're doing a cookery demonstration. So I was very conscious of, I don't want people to go, what is this? You know, just some terrible recipe, you know, that somebody, so it's like you want to, everything about it should feel off kilter. Yes. So it was like from camera angles to her behavior, that you're not sure that she's in her right mind, maybe. All of that was kind of deliberately to not push any of it too far, because you didn't want to become like very conscious. Hopefully, you know, you're not coming across like some moving towards a horror film or something, you know, but it's giving that build of discomfort through everything, through how it looks, how we shoot, and also to the clues that she drops. She'll suddenly say something very sad and you're like, oh, where's this come from? You know, she's just chopping an onion. So again, it was piece by piece. We just wanted to kind of drip feed the audience towards what would be the build of the stress, of the memory, of the panic attack, I suppose, that she has, because the time was running away, and then we have the reveal. So it was very simply that, of just literally a building block of, and how we use the detail of that. Now, this is my first time directing, so I was conscious too. I wanted to play with one space and play with all the detail of one space that I could, you know, that was the explore.
I think it's really fascinating in Myrtle. Early in the film, we see her reciting like how you cook, what do you do first, and tiny little steps of like, here's what you do first, and then second, and then third. And that's when I first thought, okay, this woman is really unhappy, upset. There's something very complex going on in her mind, and she's alone in this industrial kitchen, and industrial kitchens are usually filled with so many people and so much activity. And so it was that combination. And then early on, there's a Dutch angle that I was like, okay, what's happening? This is clearly not a cooking show. And Natalia, with Gabriela, you know, I got she has so much sass when she walks in there, so much confidence and bravado or bravada when she walks in, and then bit by bit we start to realize, oh, she is the cleaner, she is not one of the girls who works on the stage. And but I do have to say, one of the moments that really felt so suspenseful for me was when she picked up the glittery gold bra and picked it up and held it up to her and did a shimmy. And I was like, oh, what is she going to do now? But I do think that, you know, to the credit of both of you as storytellers, these are very domestic moments. Picking up a bra, yes, it's glittery, but holding it up to you, that is a very domestic moment. Chopping an onion, pulling out a recipe, these are very domestic moments that you both infused with such power. Like, you didn't need any guns or knives or like chase sequences to make us feel intense suspense in those moments. So I really appreciated that.
Thank you. That's a really great observation. I've never actually heard someone use the word domestic in regards to the action of the film, but you're so right. You know, it's private, right? And both of the films are, I think, very internal and private, and how you connect your audience with that. Thank you.
Yes, and also I think that those moments are so relatable to so many of us because we do them, and yet the context around them infuses the context that you created for your characters and the situation they're in, infuses those moments with great power. And that I would like to see more moments like that in film. Note to everyone in Hollywood. Okay, so moving on, I did want to ask Gabriela, some of this film is in Spanish. Do you speak Spanish?
I don't actually. It's all the first draft, and subsequent drafts were written in English. I worked with a close friend of mine to write the Spanish translation, and then in casting Lucia, who's bilingual actress, it kind of emboldened the language and made it more natural. And I was nervous about directing, you know, in a language that's not my own, but I found it very natural. It helped to have great actors and to rehearse. We rehearsed quite a bit, but that in pre-production made me on set know exactly what I want and already be you know, have an ear tuned to that, and a good eye you know, focused on the language as well. And so that helped. But it was a process to get to that point. And I have friends and cast and crew to thank for really making it come alive, the Spanish.
I'm really glad you did that because I think it adds a layer of authenticity to the storytelling. And again, because I don't read log lines before I watch the films, I was like, is this a documentary? It felt
great.
very natural.
Thank you.
And then I did realize it was narrative. I did get that.
Yes.
Well done. Patricia, you know, before we started, Natalia raised this really interesting question that I'm just going to steal from her. You directed this as well as starred in it as the only character, as well as co-wrote. So can you talk about how you dealt with the responsibilities on set of performing and being the director?
First up, I think preparation is everything. So I rehearsed myself to death. I knew it upside down, backwards, inside out. I really worked very hard on the character and on the space that she inhabited mentally and emotionally. That aside, I, you know, was very lucky to build a good team, great collaborators. So on the day, I really trusted who I was working with. And again, we'd prepped very clearly, we'd prepped well, so that with the intention that I had to make it and to realize it, I felt my DOP really understood. And so that was just honestly like a dance. It went very well. And I know that's lucky, particularly on your first go. And I also listened to a lot to people that act direct and took advice of how to handle it on the day. So again, I think if once you prepare as best you can, you have to just go for it, and you can't hold on or micromanage, because that'll switch you off of the focus you need to dive into the performance. So I was very conscious of keep moving and don't get don't get tunneled into just staring at the monitor. Kind of trust the process, trust the feel of it, keep moving. And that was it really for me. And I know this was unique because it is a monologue, so it has its own unique form. But yeah, that was it really. I just, yeah, preparation and then letting go and just hoping for the best, you know.
So walk me through this. Did you have a stand-in on set for when camera and lighting was being set? And
oftentimes that was the poor production designer, because she was so busy kind of with multiples of the food and setting the food anyway in the space. So she would be like, fine, I'll be the stand-in. Or sometimes the production assistant. But yeah, it was fast moving, you know. We did it in 2 days. And it was actually in a restaurant. And so we had to get out by a certain time each day. So yeah.
Wow. So then would you finish a take and then go watch it on the monitor?
Mostly, but I wouldn't linger. I felt if it feels right, if we're capturing it, we keep moving. Maybe give it another couple of shots, you know, and then go with what we've got. Right. It was really about trusting the process and trusting that we would find it in the edit without trying to control it too much on the day. Yeah, just go with it and try it a few different ways and keep moving.
It's very impressive, the way that it all came together. And also, Patricia, what about breaking the fourth wall? And how was this the first thing that you had ever been in where you broke the fourth wall? What were the conversations around that?
Again, I suppose thinking about that, I was very conscious of that, and therefore wanted to make it a moment of collusion, so that we were seeing in the opening, we kind of are seeing bits of this character in this space. And then she's calling for help, nobody comes, and then it's that turning back moment of that feeling of isolation, that suddenly her only friend is this guy. And so that was the intention, again, to give meaning to the breaking of the fourth wall, because it is weird and it is breaking all the rules in a way in film, but it can be used very powerfully. I've seen it used very powerfully in films before, so I thought, don't waste that. I wanted to try not to waste that and really give that a moment.
Right.
For the drama.
And I do, back to that thing about mystery versus and suspense, I do think early in the film, when you look into the camera for the first time, it is very surprising and jolting. And that gets our thought process going. It makes us wonder, okay, what just happened? Did she look at the camera? Okay, what's going to happen next?
Well, that's good. I'm pleased.
Was that part of the play?
No. There was a guard, so she was speaking to a guard. Yeah, in the play.
She's speaking to a guard, so she's telling the story to a guard, or
no, she was speaking to the guard in the play. I mean, it's just the play is different, so it's kind of. But yeah, she was kind of speaking to somebody who was actually present rather than nobody being there. So again, it's that choice you make. Again, for economic reasons too. You know, we didn't have much budget. We're trying to figure out how to do this, and you think, keep it simple, one actor, you know.
Yeah. You know, my mother was a visual artist, and she always said, let your limitations be your creativity. Let them establish your creativity.
I definitely on this project learned that, actually, how you come up against a brick wall and you figure how to make this work. What do we do? You know, like you say, you can be surprised. Absolutely.
Okay, so couple of questions about location and working with your DP. Natalia, you had sort of the run of a club, different rooms within the club, and then you took your story outside. What were some of the conversations you had with your DP about what you really wanted to shoot or what kind of vibe you wanted the location to have?
A great segue from what we were just talking about, because limitations
Okay.
and resources were, I to be completely blunt, we basically, we couldn't go out and get the dream club, right? We ended up getting a dream club, but we couldn't get out and there and just like pay for the strip club in my head, right? Or the strip club that me and my DP were dreaming of. We had to go with who would work with a small budget short film, you know? And I visited a lot of places in New York, and really struggled to find somebody who would work within our confines of budget and how much time we needed. But eventually Marty at Starlet's, wonderful owner, like really was flexible enough with us, and we had to coax him a bit, but eventually he agreed, and we came up with a plan. And that's when my DP and I started going a lot to spend time there. So it wasn't like the shot list was dreamed up, you know, and we went and found the location. It was kind of, you know, the story existed, and you know, the action existed, but I had to go find the club. And then it came alive more after I got the location, like exactly what she would be cleaning, you know, what we had access to, what we didn't have access to. And then Ryan DeFranco, wonderful cinematographer that I worked with before and has become a really close collaborator of mine. We would go in the daytime, we'd go in the nighttime, and just you talk about surprise, be like surprised by things in the club, and be like, oh, we should cover that, and how could we cover that? And the other thing I'll say is shooting on location for a club is very challenging because there's mirrors everywhere. So so you had to find ways to hide your camera, hide crew. It was a process. It was challenging, but I learned a lot through the process. And I think again, to the point that your mother makes, and from those challenges emerged something better.
That is fascinating. Of course, there are mirrors everywhere. Patricia, what about the kitchen? Tell us about that and the conversations you and your DP had.
Well, again, I mean, our problem was no space, you know, confinement, movement. How do we move the camera in the space, because there's so, you know, such limited choice. But we both wanted the kitchen to be a character, I suppose, to feel like a kind of ever oppressing presence. So to always shoot through things, so that Myrtle was kind of encased in between, you know, the railings on the side of the shelves, or the counter on the other side. So again, it was absolutely, what can we do with what we have? It was always that, with the intention of, you know, the references that we had and the feel that we wanted to create. Really, I mean, you don't have that much, you know, you're in a cramped kitchen, there's a crew of 15. We didn't have much choice. So it was inventiveness, absolutely, you know, there was inventiveness just to work with what we had, you know.
Absolutely. I also really enjoyed the way, you know, you said the character, you wanted the kitchen to feel like a character. And so things like the flame turning up and the sound of the flame turning up become almost villainous. And the clock, that was your big villain, right? In the absence of somebody with a mustache and a black hat, or what have you, it was the clock and the sound of the, again, domestic items that you used with great effect. Okay, well, I think we're kind of coming up towards the end. Did you have questions that you wanted to ask each other about the films?
I did have this question. I know that the idea for your film came from the play, but after you decided to take that character and to develop this idea, how much did you delve into this world, and what research you did about families, on death row, and the relationships between parents and their children?
Yeah, I mean, I think first up, I kind of watched everything I could relating to, there's plenty of documentaries going on the effect of death row on both inmates and on the family, and also on and around cases and whether people are actually guilty or innocent, or what. I didn't actually interview anybody directly, but certainly just kind of listened a lot and read a lot.
Mhm.
And the themes are constant. It's like what is expressed in Myrtle is something that you keep coming across, which is a kind of impoverished by choice. The choices a lot of people have in their lives, and they're kind of trapped in a kind of socioeconomic situation that can lead some people to go on a path that could be destructive. And I think Myrtle was a kind of shining the light on a woman who felt helpless in the path that her child ended up on, and the inevitable kind of breakdown of a relationship, as a result of that. And yeah, I mean, it's a heartbreaking area, really, because the amount of stories you read about people with really, really broken lives, really sad lives,
Mhm.
you even feel like just not seen and not loved, and as much the family of as the sometimes innocent inmate. So I think it was that was really what we wanted to try to capture in Myrtle, in that woman's story, because that's what kept coming out in the stories that we're reading or watching. Yeah.
Patricia, I think that the fact that we don't get all the details of what happened is really fascinating, but we do get details like Brandon doesn't go by his name anymore. And those raise so many questions that just, again, spark that curiosity.
Yeah. And I hope too, I suppose that's one thing, if we think, if we can eke out the story to try to go for a feature, that it's a kind of, you're dropping some clues to hopefully build on.
I can see that. Okay, Natalia, I have one last question for you, which is, what has surprised you or impressed you in terms of audiences reacting to this piece?
Oh, it's been wonderful. It's been, it premiered in Austin last fall in the virtual festival, and I just recently played in Holly Shorts, and it was my first time seeing it in person here in Los
Live.
Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was such a wonderful experience. It really felt like the audience was engaged, and I so appreciate your questions about mystery and surprise, because I didn't, I think, realize quite how much people were sort of on the edge of their seats of like, what's she gonna do, until I felt it in live so much. And it's nice to have this conversation with you now, bringing up the same points. That's been really special to see people just kind of feel like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next. And then I have to say, like, how much people related to her, even though it's a very unique experience that this character has. Maybe it is the domesticity that you described, or we all have a bit of curiosity about about our jobs and what else could we do if we don't do the thing that we're doing, or you know, I mean, as women, you sometimes wonder like, oh, what do I, how do I empower my own body or not, you know, what choices do I make about my body, and so that's been really wonderful to see how different people actually relate to the character, even though it's such a specific experience. And that's always a goal in my work, universality.
I do think that people leave your film asking a lot of questions for themselves, about
So.
themselves and their experience in the world, and the economics of it all. As back to that. Well, thank you so much for answering these questions. I thought both of your films were terrific, and I know that audiences at Tallgrass will really enjoy them greatly. And I wish you great luck in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.